Hello and good evening. Thank you for being here in such an evening. And you know, the topic of tonight is ways to understand consciousness, the reality of the self, and the reality of perception. Very difficult topic. 1637. It's the year when René Descartes, also known as Cartesius. The name Cartesius is the Latinized form of Descartes, which in French means cards, from the cards of the cards. So in Latin means exactly that. Published Le Traité sur la méthode, the treatise on method. That doesn't say much to people just like that, but everybody heard a famous statement that is in the introduction to this treatise, which is the statement cogito ergo sum, right? This is a pretty famous statement, which means in English, I think, therefore I am. What this means, what is Descartes trying to do with this statement? It is clear that he's trying to reduce the being to thinking. That's why another thinker in the 18th century, during the time of the Enlightenment, his name was Leonard Thomas, he rephrased that in dubito ergo cogito ergo sum. I doubt, therefore I think, therefore I am. You see how tricky this statement is. Now, how Descartes comes to this statement? The story is one of those philosophical stories that people keep telling, and it says that Descartes was also a soldier. It was not just today we have the idea that human beings are just one thing. Actually, that's something about the last 50 years. Before, human beings were many things. You know, Descartes was a soldier, was a mathematician, was a thinker, was a philosopher. That's why a great thinker of the 20th century called Herbert Marcuse wrote a book called Marcuse, one of the three big names of the Frankfurt School, wrote a book called The One-Dimensional Man, describing contemporary men, you know, the eindimensionale Mensch in German. But in those times, people were many things. Now, Descartes was this soldier. During the battle in winter, there was this war that he was participating to. And because it was too cold, in the past wars were not fought in winter, because they didn't have tanks and all stuff. So he was in this room. And he started thinking about the world and what it is, what it's not. And he was asking himself, how can I be certain of anything? Let's assume that all I'm saying is just a strange dream, which is very legit. Sometimes you have dreams that are so real that you just feel, you get scared and you wake up. But now, he reached the conclusion that if I deny everything that I know, that this table is here, that there is light, that I am, there's one thing I cannot deny, which is that I am thinking, you know? So this is a way of doubting that from the doubt he obtains a certainty. By doubting everything, he cannot doubt on the fact that he's doubting, you know? Because I mean that's ultimate certainty. People teach that today as something that happened, something very new that never happened before. It is not true, once again. Because this is first of all, it's very interesting that through the negation of everything, he reaches a certainty. Reminds you of something? Remember last time we discussed about the coincidentia oppositorum, you know? Opposta, which is opposta non opposita I love to have a big blackboard. Sed complementa sunt. So the opposite are not opposite, but are complementary one to the other. Descartes is doing exactly that. He's using the opposition. He's saying, let's say that nothing is, but then something is, because I'm nothing. You know? And if you want to go a little back, that was a proof used by Euclid in the Elements. It's a famous proof of Euclid, the proof of infinitude of prime numbers. He assumes, by contradiction, he says, let's say that that the result, he says the opposite of what he wants to prove, and at the end he proves it. We can go into the proof that it's mathematical in its form. But just to say that in many cases, thinking reaches the conclusion, a positive conclusion, through a contradiction or a negative statement. Now, actually, even Plato used to say before Descartes, noesis noeseos, noesis noeseos, it's the thinking that thinks. It's in the Republic, which is one of the definitions that has been used by Aristotle to define the divine. To define the divine, noesis noeteos, noetic, I believe, I'm not sure, that it means the definition of God for Aristotle is pure thinking itself. Again, a circular definition, because you cannot give a definition of the divine. But so Descartes was a thinker of the 17th century. The 17th century is a century where a large part of our understanding of the world and of reality has been determined. For example, many things that today we believe can be traced back to Descartes. For example, Descartes believed of human beings as automaton, means a sort of machines, that operates through a certain complicated internal mechanism. And he also believed the human being as dominator mundi, the one who dominates, who possesses the world. You see where that leads to mechanical understanding and interpretation of the human being, leads to extreme manipulation of the world. It's a way of thinking that was born in the 17th century. That's why another 17th century thinker. Okay, we're already short on space. Where is that?
Sponge.
Sponge is not sponge.
Oh, I can.
Sponge. I can use a piece of paper. No?
I think so. I'm looking for my tissue. Okay.
I think I have some.
Yeah, she's coming back with some.
I do have. Thank you. Thank you so much. Sorry. So. So we have this. There is John Locke, who takes back another statement. Nisi est in intellectu quod, of course, quod prius non fuerit in sensu, which means nothing is in the intellect that was not before in the senses. That's 17th century. It says everything you can think about is something that you received from the senses. For example, a unicorn, according to this theory, is a mix of a horse and a narwhal, the fish with the horn. So that's the statement they are trying to push forward. To which which is an old, it's an old, it's a peripatetic axiom called, which is because it's as old as the peripatetics, but to which the great thinker Leibniz added nisi ipse intellectus. That's brilliant. There is nothing in the intellect that is not before in the senses, apart from the intellect. It's like saying, in this glass of water, there is nothing but water, but the glass. It's not just the water, you know. There is also the glass that contains these things, you know. So the idea that they want to give you that there is a one-to-one match between your consciousness or your intellect, yourself, and reality, meaning from this understanding, what comes out is that your consciousness is just an assembly of things. It's a little piece of this, a little piece of that, that you rearrange like a salad, a Caesar salad. You mix everything and then you have the salad. But Leibniz, which I will never get tired of pointing out that without Leibniz we would not have computers. You know? I say this to people that are all for now and forever and the material things. I tell them, look, computers works in binary numbers. Binary numbers were discovered by Leibniz 3 centuries ago. They had no application, because today people, they always application. They had no application whatsoever for 3 centuries. Until somebody came up with a computer where binary numbers make sense, because for us they don't make much sense. We don't compute that fast that we can use binary numbers. Just to go against the idea of all its material and applied. Anyway, sorry for the digression. Berkeley, another thinker of that time, said another famous statement. Esse, again, is not originally his, but I mean he made this esse est percipi, which in English is usually translated, don't ask me why, with to be is to be perceived, but the more correct translation would be to be is to perceive. Again, do you see something in here? Do you see a picture that is forming in front of your eyes about the way that our society teaches you who you are, you know? Our culture teaches you who you are. Cogito ergo sum. I am because I think. I would say, for example, what is missing from the cogito ergo sum? Well, let's say one thing that is missing. I feel because therefore I am. What happened? What happened to feel? Of course, Descartes say that the thinking includes the feelings, which is wrong, definitely wrong. Then you have everything that you see comes from senses. So, what is your part? Who are you? You're just nothing. You're just a collection of sense impression. And then you are because you perceive. That's it. That's it. That's a human being that emerges, and the image of consciousness that emerges in modernity. Plato, of course, was totally against this because he realized immediately at the beginning of history that it doesn't make sense to rely too much on perception. For what reasons? I mean, we can use reasons to understand. Today we can even use science. If I put a stick in water, half in water, half outside, how do I see the stick? I will see the stick in water. Feel the stick, it will look like this. Bent. Is the stick bent? No, it's not. It's my perception. It's my perceiving that is tricking me. If I look at the earth now, how do I see it? I see it flat. But I do know it's not flat. And we can go on and on and on. Last time we mentioned the matter that is not solid. But if you say that to be is to perceive, you're putting all the errors of perception into your being. By Plato, that's the opposite. He says through perception we go to being. The myth of the cave is exactly about that. You know, there are people that they look at the wall and they are esse percipi, because if you see at the wall, you see just shadows. You're seeing shapes, things that are not clear. Plato says the task of the philosopher, the one who thinks, is to break the chain, get out, and look at the real reality. With Of course, this is a process that can be done only through the intellect. But if the intellect has been destroyed in a way that says, intellect, it just senses, without considering the evil liveness that broke all the game, then you are in a cage. You are in a real cage where there is no way out. If we just jump for a few hundred years, we see, you ask a neurobiologist today, who are you? The neurobiologist will give you an answer that is extremely connected to them, because the neurobiologist says, well, your reality is something made up by your mind. It's your mind is like the mind is painting the canvas of reality. They derive this by some experiments they do that I'm not going to mention even about the reaction. They say that because sometimes using the MRI machines, they notice that you take the glass, but somewhere in your brain the stimulus happens before you start the movements, you know? So they think that they see that in a mechanical way, the automaton, by Descartes, you know, the automaton, which is a terrible, terrible term to define. Automaton were actually in that time called the machines, Neuchâtel machines, etc., that they were little robots that they were able to play, and in some cases they were also tricked, they were fake things, there was somebody inside that was playing, but anyway. This idea of the man, of the human being as a machine. First of all, personally, I believe this is extremely dangerous because it leads to exactly where we are, to the concept of the human being as disposable. If I am this, okay, that's it. I can throw it. There is no unicity. There is nothing that makes this different from the other one. So it's a machine. It's a nothing. I don't feel bad if I crash a plastic glass. Nobody feels bad because it's just. And this is a big problem. And now that neurobiologists are going into this direction, claiming or pretending to prove that our consciousness is something neurochemical. If I change the chemistry in your brain, I change your consciousness. What a nonsense. One of the big errors that they make is to relate consciousness and awareness. They don't understand that they are not the same thing, you know. They confuse consciousness and awareness. I can be conscious of something without being aware of it. And this is a discovery that comes from philosophical thinking, and also from Freud. Sigmund Freud proved, he used the concept you have heard of the subconscious. Sigmund Freud tells you stories about the subconscious that are extremely interesting, but they also show that large part of who we are, it's subconscious. Freud goes as far to say that it's the tip of the iceberg, our consciousness, respect to what is unconscious. There are very interesting examples of that. For example, one example that Freud makes, which always struck me, is he asks people, what is the first thing you notice when you meet a person? The very first thing.
Appearance, yeah.
Appearance, face. See, this is something so deeply related with us, but we don't even know.
It's subconscious.
Because when I'm going to tell you, you're going to say, yes, that's it. But you don't know something so deep about yourself.
Yeah.
You want a second chance?
No, I think some people, when you meet, you already have the electricity, which you have the good.
And say any type of person, any type of person you meet. There is one key factor that you notice. First, you don't even know, you don't even realize that. It is if that person is male or female. That's the very first thing that you notice. And you don't know. You see, I ask you consciously, you don't know consciously. Now that I told you, you say, right? You say that's what it is.
Yeah, but that's also partially the appearance, right? So it strikes to you like how he appears, and then you make conclusions, right? So
yes, but the appearance, of course, is related. That's why sometimes we get confused when we see someone and we cannot but it's not conscious. Freud tells you it's subconscious. because for several reasons, could be evolutionary, we don't know. It's one feature of human beings. Think, I mean, this man stayed there and was thinking about what is the first thing we notice. You know, and he realized that at the end goes to that basic distinction. It could be evolutionary, for example, because, I mean, if you're in the savannah and you perceive a man or a female, it makes a big difference, you know, because the one can be aggressive and the other one not, or stuff like that. We don't want to go too much into the details, but the point is that there is a huge amount of what you are, you are not aware of, but you're conscious of. You're very conscious. Like when you sleep. When you sleep, you are sleeping. But if something happens, you wake up. So there is a relationship that is not clear cut in the relationship between consciousness and reality. That's why neurobiologists are just spreading this nonsense. I don't want to say nonsense, but these theories, philosophical theories that started in the 17th centuries that sees man as kind of a container. That's why there's another theory that dates back to Descartes, the theory of the brain in a tub. You know, that you have if you would have an advanced civilization that would remove your brain and put it in a container and put electrodes, etc., and give you the right stimuli, you will still not see the difference between your reality and the Matrix, for example, the movie. Have you ever seen The Matrix? The Matrix is a Cartesian movie, you know, where the people are harvested, and then there's the blue pill, the red pill, I think, you know. That's exactly that line of thinking, which again predates to the Greeks. The Greeks changed that to our reality, to who we are. I believe it's one of the most beautiful explanations of death. And the Greek says that when you die, actually nothing happened. They think that you are like a puppet, not a puppet, well, a puppet probably, well, the puppet, you know, those things that they play sometimes with the sword. And there are these wires that they go up to the heavens. Now for the Greeks there's only one wire, and this is a gold wire. And when you die, the only things that happen, because your real self is here asleep. When you die, this wire is cut by a Moira with a golden scissor, and you just wake up. That's all that happens.
Beautiful.
That's a beautiful myth. It's the most brilliant and most beautiful myth about death. You know, that's it. You know, and then you realize what? That you were in a dream. You know. And that's also an ancient topic from philosophy to literature, Calderón de la Barca, La vida es sueño. Yeah, that's one of the many. And anyway, this all to say that the reality of the self and the reality of perception are not two different things, as we wanted to make in the title on purpose. But it's the same thing, you know, it's the same thing where you cannot divide the reality of yourself from the reality of reality. You cannot tell, really, in reality, if we are in a dream or if we are awake or where we are. You cannot do that. And the questions? Are the questions?
For later.
For later. Anyway, well, if there are no questions, I think we could go a little. Sorry, Herbert, I forgot the team. We could go a little deeper, but I prefer to do that during the discussion, given that we have set the key elements of it. Thank you. No, please.